So something really awesome happened last night, and I have to tell you guys the story. So I went to my local Barnes& and Noble for a book event for another author, and this is a traditional trad pub author, very famous. They've made TV shows out of his books. He's done like 40 plus books. He's an older dude, writes fantasy, but why this author is so important to me is that back in the day, like when I was a kid, I really didn't think that I could read. And there are reasons for that, but essentially I was really sick as a kid. And so I just didn't get like that fundamental education. And so I just really thought that I couldn't read. And I really didn't read in school. I didn't do really much in school in those early years. So I was, I think, 12 when I was like at this local like bookstore, movie, CD place back in the day. I miss those so much. I saw one of his books and it had a sword on it, and I love swords and I love fantasy, and I was like, this is cool, but the book was like this thick. It was massive. It was 3 books in one. And so I was like, I don't think I can read this, but I got the book anyway, and I ended up loving it. And that's what kind of one of the things that got me into books and loving books. And I have almost all of his books in hardcover first edition. I'm missing 2 of his original, and I know I'll get them one day. So it was so amazing to actually meet him last night. But it gets so much better, you guys, seriously. And so I was able to ask a question with it was the audience. So like I like raised my hand up and I got a question asked. I asked a question and got it answered, and it was great. And so once it was time to line up and sign, I had more books than I was allowed, but the Barnes & Noble people were so amazing, and he signed all of my books. And while he was signing them, I had mentioned that I was an author, and he's like, well, write your books down. I was like, oh, really? And then we were talking about it, and he asked who my publisher was, and I was like, well, me. And he was like, oh, you're indie? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, where can I find your books? I was like, well, they're right here. And he's like, here in this store? And I was like, yes. Because I had just done a signing there a couple weeks ago. And he was like, do I have to buy it? And I was like, yes, you have to buy it, just like I have to buy your book. And it was so funny. He was so cheeky. He's like this little old man. I loved him so much. It was amazing. So he ended up obviously getting my book. I signed it for him. It was so amazing. The guy in line behind me, had met me at the Comic-Con that I was at earlier, recognized the name of the book when I said it, didn't recognize me, but recognized the book. So he ended up getting a book too. And then these random people who were just like standing there ended up getting book 1. And it was wacky. It was wacky doodle. But anyway, I'm sure you're probably wondering who the author is. I'm not sure if you know him, but it is Terry Brooks, and I love him so much. So let's look at the pictures that we got. So this is him actually looking at the little message that I wrote for him in my book. Like, just, oh my gosh, like such a dream come true. I'd never even like imagined that he would even be remotely interested. Like, what? And then this is one of the pictures of us together. He was so sweet, so funny. I'm just like, oh, like I can't even say like how much of a dream come true it was. And then the staff of the Barnes & Nobles was so sweet, and everybody kind of letting me go back in temporarily and kind of get a second shot at him. But I'm just so grateful. Like, it was just beyond what I could have imagined.